Okay, honeybees have highly organized colonies in which each bee plays a part for the survival of the entire colony. Today we're going to talk about these roles of honeybees. First, the queen bee. The queen bee gave birth to most, if not all, of the bees inside the colony. And you guessed it, her role is giving birth. And the queen bee gives birth quite successfully, laying up to 1,500 eggs a day. The queen bee has a diet of royal jelly, a protein-rich substance secreted by worker bees. Worker bees also remove their waste and groom the queen bees and treat them like royalty every day, but we'll get into them later. Due to all this treatment, the queen bee has nothing to worry about except laying eggs. But that's still a crucial job, because there's only one queen bee inside the entire hive. However, the queen bee has a lot of time to give birth, with a lifespan of 2 years. Next, the worker bees. As their title says, worker bees are all about work. They're fierce and hard-working fighters, and have many roles inside the colony. These include protecting the queen bee and meeting all her needs, gathering and storing nectar, feeding larvae, and defending the nest. First, worker bees protect the queen bee. Worker bees are equipped with barbed stingers, and they're not afraid to use them and give their lives for the queen bee, literally. When worker bees sting, their sting that rips out their organs along with the stinger, and so worker bees die after they sting. It's their job. The worker bees also meet all of the queen bee's needs, which includes feeding her, grooming her, removing her waste, doing everything for her. Worker bees also gather and store nectar. Worker bees, when they're old enough, take to the fields and gather nectar, a sweet liquid, from flowers. Also, they collect pollen on their legs, and when they fly from flower to flower, they spread the pollen unaware of what they're doing. They're pollinating the flowers, and without this pollination, then the flowers would not be able to reproduce, at least most flowers. After collecting the nectar, worker bees store the nectar in hexagonal cells of a structure called a honeycomb. The honeycomb is actually made from wax secreted from 8 glands in the worker bee's abdomen. The abdomen is the part in the back of the worker bee. On top of all of this, the worker bees also have to feed larvae and defend the nest. They are very caring for the young bees, and most of them make it to adulthood. Also, worker bees defend the nest with the determination that they defend the queen bee, and they are not afraid to use their stingers and give their life for the colony to survive. Worker bees have a diet of honey, which they make from nectar, and pollen, which is rich in protein. There are 20,000 to 80,000 worker bees in the hive, which makes sense because there are so many duties for the worker bees. If there was only one, then that would overwhelm that worker bee. And worker bees have a lifespan of 6 weeks. But the queen bee can give birth to up to 1,500 baby bees a day. So remember, once the worker bees pass away, they can have replacements. And they will have replacements. And lastly, drones. Drones are disabled but crucial. If you're wondering what that means they don't have stingers and they can't even feed themselves. Drones have a tough life, even though their only role is attempting to mate the queen. However, this is a thankless job, as after the drones are chosen for the queen to mate with, they are savagely killed by the queen bee in order to for the queen bee to receive their sperm to use for egg laying. And the drones that aren't chosen for mating with, they don't have it easy either, because when no more larvae or eggs are needed, then the worker bees kick them out of the nest where they die. It's a tough life, and sometimes nature can be cruel, especially to drones. Drones have a diet of honey and pollen, which is fed to them by nursery worker bees, which are a branch of worker bees. There are 200 to 800 drone bees inside the hive, about one for every 100 worker bees, and they have a lifespan of up to 8 weeks. And lastly, fun facts. What job the worker bee has varies by their age. This is true. When worker bees are at their youngest, they clean up the nest and rid it of dead bodies or anything that could make the nest unclean. But when they're older, the worker bees, they take care of the larvae. And when they're older than that, they take to the fields to gather and store nectar, and they defend the nest. Next, nursery worker bees will check on the young they are raising and feeding over 1,000 times a day. Nursery worker bees are very, very caring for the young they are raising, and they will check on them over 1,000 times a day. And when the larvae are hungriest, when they're about 8 days old, then the nursery worker bees will feed them up to 10,000 times in that period. So they're very caring. As you can see, nature has given us very, very wonderful honeybees, and they work together in an amazing way in order to survive. Thank you for your time.